Welcome to Down the Road with me, Joel Heitkamp. Shannon Roars-Jones is going to join us today. Shannon's running for mayor in the great city of Fargo. I love saying great city, no matter what it is. I love saying great state of North Dakota. But Shannon, Tim Mahoney thought, or at least I think he thought, that he was going to run unopposed. He's not. There's already people lining up to be the next mayor of Fargo. Of course, it's such a growing city that it doesn't surprise me. It's Shannon. You might know her from the North Dakota legislature. She's a state representative from South Fargo now. And of course, we're going to ask her whether or not she can do both jobs because she just got elected as a state legislator. Daryl Richardson is going to join us. We've had Daryl on before. We're going to talk to him about the North Dakota Agricultural Network, but most importantly about what's happening in our weather pattern right now. Severe weather storm, those type of things that are going on. As you look out the window, there's stuff going on right now. But before we do any of that, Angie Johnson has been asked, to go out there and make sure that those people farming and ranching are doing it as safely as they possibly can. She works with NDSU. She's an extension coordinator. Farm and ranch safety is her job, and we're going to bring her in. Angie, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I've known farmers, ranchers all my life. I mean, that's the world that I grew up in. And we used to joke, Angie, about, guys that would farm for so long that it was like, okay, do they have 9 or 8 fingers? You know what I mean?
Yep,
I mean, safety wasn't something that a lot of people looked at. And of course, the machinery's gotten bigger. And so why did the state of North Dakota invest in you? Why did they say, Angie, we need you. You got to come out and you got to talk safety?
Well, first off, Joel, a lot of what we're seeing, the media has done, and I'm going to give them credit. They've done a really good job reporting what's happening. That's the only way we know what's going on is if we hear from news sources about farm accidents that are happening. And so in these past few months, looking back at a lot of grain bin entrapments we've had in North Dakota, there's getting more and more traction to talk about those incidences. And so as they have been climbing in terms of reports, the state really did a nice job and stepped up and say, hey, we need to do some more prevention education work instead of intervention, instead of the rescue side of things. We need to look at how can we help these people prevent from getting in those situations. So we don't have hard data statistics, but the reality is accidents are happening on our farms and ranches, and we need to take a deeper look because, as you said, farm equipment has changed drastically. Labor has changed. We rely on seasonal workers for a lot of our labor. Yeah. We don't have kids that are always growing up on farms anymore that are ready to go to work. And that's been a big player too. Well,
and the more short you are of labor, the quicker you put somebody into a piece of equipment before they're trained.
Absolutely. That's I always talk about slow down and take time to teach. We get in a habit that, Joel, I assume that you're going to know how to operate this $250,000 combine. Get inside and get that field combine. Don't break down while you're at it. We're quick to make that assumption, and that's we're setting our workers up to fail, and we're setting us up for a potential for a disaster.
It's got to be hard for you in one sense that farmers are too busy to sit down, talk to you, go to a seminar, those type of things until this time of year. When the corn growers meet, when the soybean growers meet, you're going to be put on these agendas because that's the purpose of the organizations. For that to carry through to actual farming season, that's got to be the connection that you must be. It's got to be hard to achieve.
It's a challenge. You hit the nail on the head. And one of the biggest things that I've got going for my program is that you have to remember, I not only support farmers and ranchers in North Dakota, but I support our county-based extension agents. And so I work with those county agents pretty closely because they're the boots on the ground. I can't possibly know everyone across the state. They have really good trust and relationships with their producers. So I work with our county agents to then work and get and build trust through them with their producers to have these conversations and to get a better idea of what's happening. I can't assume that out in western North Dakota, corn storage is our number one problem. a lot of times it's going to be, maybe it's livestock handling. Maybe we need to do some more prevention and training for employees on how do we handle cows when they're calving. And so those agents, they have a really good grasp of what's going on across the state. They're my go-to people.
Angie, I pulled a gentleman out of a fertilizer bin where, it was spring and some of that had gotten compacted. You know how this works.
Absolutely.
And so he was setting dynamite charges in it. He was sending electric charges in it to break it up. And he'd gone back to the, set the charge, gone back to the electric outlet, plugged it in. Nothing happened. He walked all the way back after having it unplugged, and boom. He ended up in the bottom of that fertilizer. I and a number of others pull him out. He's crushed. He's done. We didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know how bad he was hurt. My point in bringing that up is I'll never get that out of my head.
No.
I'll never get that out of my head, Angie.
No, that'll never leave you. And you bring up such a good point, and it bothers me that it has to take a tragedy. It has to take a tragedy for us to make change. And I want to set the standard. I want to change that behavior. And one way to do that is to help producers share those stories. I mean, that has a personal cut. That hurts you, and you're never going to forget that. And so one of the programs that we're running is this Golden Glove initiative, where county extension agents across North Dakota have received pairs of these gloves.
Okay.
And in order for a producer to receive a pair, I want them to have a good relationship and talk to their extension agent about a scenario they've gone through, that they've experienced. Help them share that story, because those stories are what help us not only spread our message, the importance of it, but help create behavior change, because they realize this could happen to me.
So say an extension agent calls you and says, Angie, it's the perfect time of year. I'm going to line up some of the men and women that need to hear this or are willing to hear it. Say it's a group as small as 10, 5. Are you willing to go out and visit?
I'll be there.
Okay, so you're not worried about the big crowd.
No, absolutely not. If I can save one life, if I can create a relationship and help create a behavior change for one person, it's worth it to me.
Well, and good for you, because you go meet one of these groups of people through the extension agent, they're all going to the Senex for coffee the next
absolutely.
day. They're all going to talk about you and what happened. Did they poo-poo it, or did they listen and understand how important it is?
That's tough. Okay, and two reasons. One is this fall I got the opportunity to speak at the Fargo Dome at the Northern Ag Expo. I mean, you've been there.
Yep.
Huge farm show. I had 9 people come to my talk. Okay, so big crowd events. People just, they're not there to that's not what they're there for, even though they need to hear the message. But my point being is that I think a lot of times farm safety messaging and talking about it is such a one-on-one, small group type of setting where individuals have to feel safe and comfortable to talk about those experiences. And it's getting better. I teamed up with another organization down at Lake Region Roundup in Devil's Lake a couple weeks ago, where they talked about grain bin safety. And we had a little bit more of an audience, but the audience that was there, the majority of them had gone through something tragic. Yeah. And so they had a connection to it. And so how do we connect people to this, whether or not they've been in that type of situation?
So what about the insurance agents? Because I'm going to give you an example. If I was selling liability insurance to a farmer, and I knew that NDSU in the state of North Dakota had hired a professional like you, I'm not saying I'd make it a requirement, because that'd be hard to do, but I certainly would be saying, hey, you got a group of folks, she's willing to come out to your shop. You need to come out and from my standpoint, even go so far as to give them a little discount if they're sitting there willing to visit with you. I mean, are you visiting with the insurance agents?
I'm so glad you brought that up. We are trying very hard, because as you've talked about, giving a little incentive, that can make a big difference, and cutting a break. So we've had those conversations. We've hit brick walls, but I want to keep talking about it, because I truly think that if our insurance companies out there, which I know they rely on our farmers and ranchers, and they want them to be safe and come home every day. So let's do something about it. Let's create a training program for those individuals. Let's get them. Let's do different lessons. Let's do activities. Heck, let's hear stories.
Yeah.
Let's hear experiences, and then let's put a plan together. And we'll take that plan, show it to our insurance agent, and say, here is my plan. We're going to keep modifying it every year to make sure this works. But that's something that you can give to your insurance agent, and they're going to say, you know what? Maybe we will give you a discount.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start some type of program. I would love to have something like that. And we're trying, but it's hard.
Well, I mentioned Farmers Union. You can go through that whole litany of people that provide that type of insurance. I mean, it's just all you're out is time.
Yep.
I mean, that's all you're out is time. You get together, you listen, you look at it. The provider provided it. I'm assuming it's free. You're not going to charge anything.
And if we do, it's because we're going to set you up. I want to figure out how I can get you a harness. I want to figure out how to get you PPE, personal protective equipment. So if we charge, it's to give you more tools for your toolbox to implement your safety plan. Absolutely.
We're going to keep talking about farm safety. We're going to hit again on the Golden Glove. We're going to get a chance to visit with Angie Johnson. We didn't let her go. We didn't let her go one bit. She's the NDSU Extension Coordinator for Farm and Ranch Safety. When you see a lot of things happening you don't want to see happening, you put some money behind maybe making things more safe and maybe making it so that more North Dakotans stay with you. And that's Angie's job as best she can do it, but you can't do it without your help. She can't do it without the outreach. It isn't just going to get done with extension agents. And I would encourage all of you insurance providers that might be watching this right now to pay attention, to realize this is a free service. This isn't some regulation that's come down. That isn't it isn't some boy you have to. I mean, that isn't it. This is all about making sure that a group of people that get together can learn from and consider safety going into the next season when it comes to ag production. I think we all know this as well, right? We all know someone that got busted up on the farm. I got a buddy out in the Forbes area who laid there waiting for help to come in a combine header that he was fixing for 8 hours. 8 hours. His leg got chewed up. And so he was hurt. He was sitting there and it wasn't continually getting him. What I'm getting at was he wasn't going to get out of it alone. And those are things you remember when people tell you that story. Angie's still here. Angie, first off, tell them again what my glove is.
So you have an official pair of our NDSU Farm and Ranch Safety golden gloves. I know they're not the golden glove in color or boxing gloves, but I think you could put a pretty good punch in them.
I like it. I'm not giving it back. How's that?
So this golden glove program, every county extension agent has received multiple pairs of these gloves. And I want producers to contact those extension agents and share their story. Share the story just like you did when you talked about your buddy that went through that horrible experience. Because the more we open up, the more we share and understand and realize how serious this is, the better off we're going to be able to do a better job fighting for it. And what I mean by that is implementing prevention practices, taking time to slow down, putting safety signs up, training our employees, and even training ourselves when it comes to using new pieces of equipment.
Well, it can happen so quick.
So fast.
Everybody I've ever talked to that got into one of these situations where things happened and people got so busted up, the one thing that they continually say is it happens so quick.
Yeah, it happens within a blink of an eye. And why else does it happen, Joe? It's because we're in a hurry. We're extremely stressed because Lord knows what's happening. It's either going to rain soon, so we need to hurry up and finish baling that hay before it becomes junk hay, or hurry up and finish combining before it changes our quality of grain. So Mother Nature doesn't always help. We're in a hurry. We're rushed. we're lacking sleep a lot of times because we're working more than 8-hour days. And so all of that builds up, and then that's when we start to make poor choices and poor decisions.
So when you look at that and you look at what you're trying to accomplish here, a lot of people are going to think regulation. I mentioned this just a second ago. You're not coming through the door as a regulator. You're not OSHA.
Nope.
For example, I want you to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point, and OSHA, the technical definition is you do not, let me put it this way. If you have 11 or more farmer ranch employees on your operation, you have to follow the rules and regulations that OSHA sets, okay? And so that's why it's really tricky for us, not only myself, but my colleagues across the state, to have a really good grasp of what types of farm and ranch related accidents are happening, because those types of accidents, they don't fall under OSHA. If it's only yourself or your brother or your son, you don't have to report that. And you make up a good point. I'm not here to set regulations. I don't want to be a regulator. That's why I love prevention work, because I don't want to get us to that point where we have to have rules and regulations like that on our operations. But I do feel that if we follow some of the standards that OSHA has set already for our larger farms, we could make a difference. They translate perfectly whether you have 11 employees or 10 or 1.
Well, if it's just one.
Right.
I mean, if it's just one, I can tell you that if it's some guy out there gets busted up, and I'm not trying to be sexist, it could be one of the women out there working in the field, but for that spouse,
yep.
You just made a difference.
Yep.
For that child who might grow up without a dad, you just made a difference.
Just made a difference.
And the tie into NDSU and Angie is perfect. One of the top ag research institutions in the nation, to be able to go there and access someone like you, I mean, that's the perfect fit, because NDSU is the place farmers go for information.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
The land grant university system is so near and dear to my heart. It's impacted me and my family through utilizing the extension service for years. It's crucial. It's non-biased, research-based. I get to do research, Joel. I get to work with different hospitals and different data collecting resources to really pinpoint what is happening, instead of just throwing darts in the air and well, I think this is a problem, we'll address this. We're doing really good research and doing really good transformational education, things that you can take home and put to practice. That's what I love about going through NDSU Extension, is that we are there to serve you, the farmer, the rancher, the family, and youth farm safety. We haven't even talked about kids on the farm. And you made such a good point. Whether you think you're directly connected to agriculture or not, farm and ranch safety impacts you. Because if that person gets hurt, if that person passes away, well, you just lost a vehicle customer at Finley Motors. You just lost, a bank. You lost a customer at your bank. It impacts a community so hard when that happens.
Well, and you mentioned, the generations, that young farmer, that was where I was going next, which is this is my suspicion. Okay. Some of the older farmers are less apt to sit down and talk to you as much as what the younger farmers are, that might understand this new age of farming. But here's the problem with that. The older farmers I know are intimidated by the equipment.
Oh, absolutely. I am too.
Right, well, I am too. I mean, I am too. My wife was going to drive beat truck. She crawled in and is like, whoa, I need to practice way more than just hopping in. So, when you look at this, is it tough to connect with certain generations?
Yes and no. So you bring up a really good point. So for example, I'm gonna just kind of give you a preview of what we're seeing. A lot of our older farmers they're getting into accidents involving tractor rollovers. Okay, so utilizing older equipment that doesn't have the rollover protective bar, the ROPS bar. And what's happening is a lot of those individuals, like you said, it's tough at first, but you forgot about the grandkids. Once the grandkids, we have that conversation and they realize farming is more than just about themselves. It's about that next generation, not their sons or daughters, but the ones to follow that. And so that's what I've noticed at some of the speaking engagements I've had, is that our older generation, it's maybe not necessarily thinking about themselves. They're thinking about those young kids that are getting in the equipment too soon, too fast.
So how do people get in touch with you, Angie?
You can certainly email me through my NDSU email. Give me a phone call, text. I'm pretty open and available to chat.
So do the Google, do NDSU.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks
for what you do. And I go back to this. If it's just one person that you're helping and saving, kudos for you.